New fundraising numbers out this weekend show donors giving many millions of dollars to several Republican candidates for the GOP nomination, and a soft fundraising quarter for President Biden. From April 1st through June, Ron DeSantis raised $20 million, just barely outpacing President Biden, who raised $19.9 million. Donald Trump raised $17.5 million, with his fundraising appearing to get a boost from the latest criminal indictment. The other candidates, however, trailed further behind, but Democratic contender Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is showing strength, as are two Republican candidates from South Carolina, Tim Scott and former Governor Nikki Haley. So what does the money trail tell us about the race? Joining us now is Centerpoint contributor and former Massachusetts Senator Scott Brown. Senator, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Good to be on. Thank you.
Okay, so one of the interesting thing is, if you look at Trump, $17 million, DeSantis, $20 million, not too bad. But if you look at these other 12 or so candidates combined, they raised $21 million. So what does that tell us about how difficult it is for them to kind of get ahead of the pack here?
Well, certainly money matters. I've run 21 races. I know how hard it is to raise money, but once people believe in you, then the money tends to come in, and you need money to pay the bills and get your name out there and do advertising and pay the staff. That being said, if you notice within Trump's numbers, I think about 14.6 million of that is from small donors, and about 2.8 is from small donors for DeSantis. If you look at Pence and, for example, Governor Christie, don't forget, they've only been on 3 weeks. They filed about 3 weeks ago during that filing period. So they're just kind of getting started. The others, yeah, listen, it's going to be tough. You have two independently wealthy people, the governor from North Dakota and then Vivek Ramaswamy. They can self-fund. They can put as much money in as they want to. But does that matter in the whole scheme of things? Well, it allows them to get their name out. I will say, though, in New Hampshire, it still matters that people are working hard the old-fashioned way. And as I said, Nikki Haley, what is that old-fashioned way? Nikki Haley's been here, gosh, so many times. And I know that DeSantis is now going door to door. Like, they're going in the grassroots. It does, you know, remember, they just need to win the primary here in New Hampshire. So they're going door to door, spending their money a little differently. And DeSantis, as you know, he's kind of stalled. He's hit a wall, let's be real. And he's done the right thing, I think, cutting back, revamping, getting and hiring a new staff. So as I said, it's a little early still, but the numbers certainly show, I think, some accuracy as to who's won through, what is it, 14 now? And we'll see where it goes from here.
Okay, so talk about that, because many people criticize Ron DeSantis because, as you alluded to, he fired nearly a dozen of his campaign staff at the end of last week because many people say he burned through so much money, $8 million of his $20 million in the second quarter that we're talking about. So what does that tell us about what's happening internally? And should he care that most of his money, as you mentioned, is from larger donors, not smaller donors?
Well, don't forget, Tim Scott's outspending himself, too, in terms of what he's fundraising as well. So a lot of people are spending. They need to get their name out. They want to be heard. They want to be seen. And listen, if you haven't run a national race before, you got to be smart with your money. There's only a certain pool to go around. I thought he did the right thing. But you mentioned earlier in your opening Joe Biden's numbers. Now, listen, you want the real story? It's the fact that you have the sitting president. There's really no one except RFK Jr. Out there. He's putting some pressure on him, that's for sure. But he raised a lower amount than President Trump and President Obama did during the same times in their presidency. And the numbers that he's including also include the roll-in from the DNC. So his numbers are definitely flat. People in that side of the House want to have a president who's going to be viable. I still don't think he's going to end up running ultimately, but they want someone who's going to be viable and coherent, not tripping downstairs or upstairs, and, you know, has the ability to compete in battle on a daily basis against all the other world leaders. I mean, that's the real story, I think, out of all the fundraising. I think the Republican side, it'll shake out, and you'll see more, as we referenced in our last report, probably around Labor Day, in the debate in August. That's when things, I think, will start to take a little bit better form. But the real story is Joe Biden's lackluster numbers.
And now to all the other news you need to know. Flash flooding in Pennsylvania has claimed 5 lives. One of the victims is the mother of 2 young children who are missing. The father and one other sibling miraculously made it to safety. Several roads are deluged and dozens of people evacuated from their homes. Flash flood warnings are also in place for millions of Americans in Connecticut, New York, and Vermont, which is still submerged in many places after severe floods last week are made worse by more heavy rain. A county judge in Iowa has temporarily blocked the state's new 6-week abortion ban law after Planned Parenthood joined with 2 other pro-abortion advocate groups to challenge the law's constitutionality. So for now, abortion remains legal up to 20 weeks of pregnancy in the state. A freight train derailed early today in Montgomery, Pennsylvania. Nearby businesses and residents have been evacuated. One of the 16 derailed cars contains hazardous material, but no leak or spill has been found. No injuries to report, and officials say the accident appears to be weather-related. Canadian wildfire smoke is again endangering Americans. Over 70 million people are under air quality warnings, ranging from Montana to Vermont, plus the entire state of New York and as far south as parts of Alabama. Reports from Canadian officials say there are currently over 580 fires burning out of control. The Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center confirms this is the worst wildfire season for burned area in record history. Military personnel have been dispatched to help fight the fires, and there have been 2 firefighter deaths. A pre-dawn rocket assault on the crucial bridge linking Crimea to Russia has forced a temporary closure. The Kerch Strait Bridge acts as the main artery used by Russia to support its troops in southern Ukraine. Russia blames Ukraine for the attack, but there has not been acknowledgement from Ukraine. The movie Sound of Freedom is showing miraculous strength at the box office. It surged to number 2 in the country this past week, with overall earnings now just over $85 million. The film's producer, Eduardo Verastegui, says it took years to get made because Hollywood kept saying there would not be an audience. After praying to God for a miracle to happen for this film, I'm holding the American dream right now. It's all glory to God. This is a miracle.